Hello, my name is Dan Sorensen, and I'm an Amiga dealer. The tape that you're viewing is split into three sections: setting up and caring for your Amiga, using the workbench, and an introduction to CLI, or the command line interface. You'll find that parts of this tape are rather simple, yet other parts will be difficult to grasp the first time through. The wonderful thing about videotape is that you can rewind and review whatever you want, whenever you want. Hopefully, you've just returned home with instructions to view this tape first. If so, you'll have at least these two boxes: the computer and the manuals. You'll also need to have either a monitor or an RF modulator if you're going to be using a television. The first box that you'll need to open is User Guides and Software. The User's Guide contains two manuals: your Introduction to the Amiga manual, which you will need to look at first, and an Amiga Basic manual that you will use only if you are planning to program in Microsoft Basic. Also, you should find 4 diskettes: Kickstart, Workbench, Amiga Basic with Tutor, and Kaleidoscope from Electronic Arts. Complete setup instructions are located in Chapter 2 of your Introduction manual. These should be followed carefully in setting up your system. There are 2 points I would like to emphasize at this time. One is to use a screwdriver to fasten down and ground your cables. Don't just plug them in, and be careful not to over-tighten them. And 2, I recommend that you connect your Amiga to a surge suppression device that will protect you from transient or high voltage spikes. Now would be a good time to pause the tape and proceed with setting up your system, keeping in mind that this tape will present you with follow-along examples, and it would be convenient to have them in close proximity. Get your system set up and turn the tape back on before you apply power for the first time. When you turn on your Amiga, notice that the power light, located here, will blink several times. The computer is running an internal system test. When everything checks out, you should hear a short melody, your disk drive light will come on briefly, and this is what you should see on your screen. The computer is asking you for the Kickstart disk. It is even showing you how it wants it put into the disk drive. That's why it's upside down on your screen. The information on the Kickstart disk must be read into the computer whenever the Amiga is first turned on. Insert your Kickstart disk at this time. The disk drive light will come on automatically, indicating that your Amiga is loading the information on this disk. It is very important that you never attempt to remove a diskette from the drive while the drive light is on. Serious damage will occur. Your disk drive stores 880,000 characters and reads information from both the top and bottom of the disk. With information packed that tightly onto these 3.5-inch disks, dust particles and oxide buildup can easily cause problems reading that information. A dust cover for your computer is highly recommended. To properly care for your drive, you will need to purchase a disk drive cleaning kit. The Floppy Clean Mac Pack from Automated Facilities is a good choice because it also includes a static wipe for your monitor and a kit for cleaning both your mouse and keyboard. Cleaning your drive should be done on a regular schedule of every 2 to 3 weeks. If you have problems with your drive and cleaning does not help, then call your authorized Amiga Service Center. Next to dirt and dust, static electricity is your computer's worst enemy. I recommend that an anti-static cloth be used every day to wipe your monitor screen. When it comes to static electricity, it is better to be safe than sorry. With proper care and maintenance, your computer should provide you with years of service and enjoyment. I will now turn you over to Dr. Doug Allen for an in-depth look at Workbench and an introduction to the command line interface.
Hello and welcome to an introductory course on the Amiga personal computer. This course is produced by Orion Video Productions and hosted by me, Doug Allen. The subjects of this course will be twofold. First, a detailed description of Workbench, and second, a brief introduction to CLI. CLI being the more traditional way to access a personal computer's features. Now, before going on to Workbench, I'd like to first discuss some safety tips on the Amiga and then discuss some peripherals available for the Amiga. On safety, first, if the computer is turned off, then rapidly turned back on, this could damage some of the internal components of the Amiga. Therefore, it is recommended that you wait a certain period of time before turning the computer back on after being turned off by you or an accidental power failure. Usually 15 to 30 seconds will be sufficient. Second, you should know how to avoid losing data on your disks. There are two main ways to lose data on the disk. The first is destruction of the disk itself, and the second is accidental erasure using many of the erasing commands we'll discuss later. Don't leave your disks in hot places or near magnets or sources of static electricity. So don't bake or fry your disks, and certainly don't soak them overnight in harsh laundry detergent. Also, rubbing your feet on the carpet and touching the disk just to hear that popping sound is also strongly discouraged. There is a third, less common way to lose data on your disk. When a file is opened and is not able to be closed before the computer is turned off, you also risk losing all the data on the disk. This could happen if, for example, during a power failure or if you yourself turn the computer off before the program closed the file on the disk. Also, if the disk were pulled out of the disk drive before the program finished writing to the disk, you could also lose the data on the disk. Thus, always make sure the disk drive light is off when the disk is taken out of the disk drive. This will ensure that the program is finished writing to the disk. The disk drive light is located here in the lower right-hand corner of the disk drive apparatus. No matter how many precautions you take, you will probably at some point end up losing data on the disk. Therefore, always make backup copies of any valuable data you have on disk, and always use a backup in place of the original disk whenever possible. To further protect against losing data on a disk, use the Write Protect tab. The Write Protect tab is located here in the upper left-hand corner of the disk as viewed from the back. When the Write Protect tab is shifted to the up position, the disk can no longer be written to. This will prevent a program from writing to and destroying data on your disk, as well as preventing a power failure from destroying data on your disk. Okay, enough about safety tips. Now for some general comments on the computer. The computer consists of the central processing unit, which does most of the work of the computer, as well as a number of peripheral devices available for the Amiga. Most of these you're probably familiar with already, but I'd like to briefly discuss a few of the peripherals you can add to your Amiga. First is the RAM, or memory, for the computer. Memory is used to temporarily store programs or data, and it's used to store graphics displays for the monitor, as well as a ton of other uses. The Amiga has an optional 256K RAM expansion board that plugs into the front of the Amiga as shown here. This doubles the amount of memory available for programs and files, etc., and can greatly enhance the Amiga's performance by allowing some of the 512K programs to run. This also increases the speed of disk drive access and other computer functions. This should probably be one of the first options purchased. Also considered as an option is the external disk drive. Unlike with many other computers, commands performed on the Amiga are actually just programs on the Workbench or other system disk. Therefore, whenever a command is issued to the Amiga, the Workbench or other system disk must be either in the disk drive or nearby. This affords a lot of disk swapping unnecessarily. With an external disk drive, the Workbench or other system disk can be placed in one drive and the other used for the program disk. Therefore, I recommend that the external disk drive be one of the first options purchased. It should also be purchased before the RAM, however, because external RAM is also allocated for a new disk drive. So if you have very little RAM to work with at first, the external drive will take up most of the memory available on the Amiga. Another option available is the monitor. There are many monitors available for the Amiga. The standard one you see here is an RGB, or red, green, blue monitor, and is the best monitor available for the Amiga and can demonstrate all 4096 colors at one time. Also available are televisions or black and white monitors or monochrome monitors. If a television is used to display the information as shown here, some resolutions of text may not be clear. Notice here the 80-column text format. This may be difficult to read on your television. More clear is the 60-column format, shown here. On an RGB monitor, however, the 80-column format should be very clear. Now I'd like to say a few words about printers. Most of you will, at one time or another, purchase a printer. After all, what good is writing your mother-in-law a nasty letter if you can't print it out? The brand names and the different types of printers are extremely confusing, however, so I'd like to briefly point out some of the major features of each type of printer. First, the daisy wheel printer. The daisy wheel printer prints very high quality text. However, it has a few poor features as well. Daisy wheel printers use typewriter technology to create letter quality text. These printers yield the best available letter quality text, but require using extra wheels if different character styles are needed, and are generally much slower than dot matrix printers. These also won't print graphics, and one advantage they do have, however, is a low price. Next, there are dot matrix printers. These form characters and graphics by striking a ribbon with multiple pins on the printing head. These can print up to 400 characters a second in draft mode versus a maximum of around 60 characters per second for daisy wheel printers. Most dot matrix printers have a letter quality mode which is fair, but usually not quite as clear as daisy wheels. The biggest advantages of dot matrix printers are the speed and graphics capability. Inkjet printers are yet another class of printer. These spray ink onto the paper with multiple inkjets and are much quieter than either dot matrix or daisy wheel printers. Many inkjet printers now also print color ink, giving you color graphics capability. An example of this is the Diablo C150 printer shown here. The cost is comparable to dot matrix printers for black and white graphics, and the speed generally falls in between that of dot matrix and daisy wheel printers. Two other classes of printers are the thermal and laser printer. These are less popular printers for several reasons, namely price for the laser printer, and won't be discussed here. You can obtain information on these types of printers from your dealer. I'd like to discuss briefly modems. Modems attach to phone lines and allow computers to communicate with one another. The signals are by and large standard, so most computers can talk to most other computers without any difficulty. They come in varying speeds, and the faster models invariably allow slower speeds as well for compatibility. The slowest speed offered is usually 300 baud. This stands for bits per second. The next highest speed is 1200 baud. This transmits at 4 times the speed of the 300 baud. So a file taking 4 minutes to download at 1200 baud would take 16 minutes to download at 300 baud. 1200 baud is fairly standard for most bulletin boards, and you can be sure it will be supported. The new wave of modems offers 2400 baud speed, but is not supported by most bulletin boards. Almost all modems try to copy the Hayes modem commands to maintain compatibility with software programs which run these modems. Hayes modems themselves are very high quality, but are also very high priced, so many clones have rushed to simulate the Hayes without the price. You must really be careful when purchasing a modem, because the quality of the modem can have a large effect on whether it can be run by standard software or even whether it can transmit reliably. Well, we're now ready to begin learning Workbench. Workbench provides a very easy way for the user to access many of the features of the Amiga. It does this by using pictures to represent functions the computer can perform. Thus, by selecting a picture, you're also selecting the function. These pictures are termed icons from the Greek word meaning image, and were first brought to the microcomputer world using the Apple Macintosh. Using pictures to represent functions the computer can perform is a very easy way to access many of the functions, but it also has certain limitations. One of these, it does not allow text to be entered, for example, when inputting file names. Another is that, say there were 40 functions available on the computer, it would be tough to find your function in the middle of 40 other pictures. Workbench solves this problem by using menus and requesters. Menus are lists of choices in text format which can be pulled down from the top of the screen. These provide an easy way to choose special options which have many different sub-options. A good example of this is indicated by the Fonts menu. A font is a character style, and each character style may have several different sizes. Without menus, this could produce a confusing screen full of pictures to choose from. Requesters are a more general term used to mean areas of the screen which are temporarily overwritten with messages allowing the input of text, such as for the name of a file to be found or the new name of a file, as shown here. These then disappear after the text has been entered. The Amiga is capable of performing many tasks at the same time. Therefore, it's important to know how to control these tasks individually. Both Workbench and CLI control tasks by using windows. Windows are variably sized areas on the screen, each of which represents a task the computer is performing. Windows can also be used to represent different areas of files, for example, as well as many other functions. Windows are manipulated using the left mouse button, termed the selection button, while the right mouse button is saved for choosing menu items and is thus called the menu button. As the mouse moves, so does the cursor move on the screen. The cursor can take the form of an arrow or a picture which represents the state of the computer at that time. An example of this is the picture of Z's, meaning the computer is busy performing some task and can't be bothered right now. When the computer is multitasking, only one task can be communicated with at any one time. For example, if a document was being printed while a graphics program was running and yet a third document was being edited, the computer must know which function you wish to control. You tell the computer which function to control by selecting the current window. Once the window is selected, you then provide a command to that window to control the function. We'll get more into this as we get further into Workbench, but for now let's begin a very basic operation on the computer. First, turn on your Amiga and place the Kickstart disk into the disk drive. You should now have this logo on the screen. This is telling you to replace the Kickstart disk with a system disk such as the Workbench disk. Now remove the Kickstart disk as shown and replace it with the Amiga Workbench disk. Before doing so, be sure the Write Protect tab is up if the original Workbench disk is being used. Your screen should now look like this. The icon in the upper right-hand corner of the screen represents the Workbench disk and is thus termed a disk icon. We need to open the Workbench icon to display the contents of the disk. To do this, position the mouse cursor over the icon as shown, then open the icon by pressing the left mouse button twice in rapid succession. The contents of the disk are now displayed in a newly opened window. As you view the window, note the many symbols located on the window's borders. These symbols are referred to as gadgets. These gadgets are used to manipulate the window as well as displaying some of the information about the window and its contents. Let's take a brief look at the gadgets located on the Workbench window. First, on the left side is the disk gauge. This gadget graphically displays the amount of memory used up on the disk and is only present on windows which represent disks. In the lower right-hand corner is found the sizing gadget. Windows can be sized to take up the entire screen or just a small portion of it. To use the sizing gadget, place the cursor over the symbol and press the selection button on the mouse. Now, while keeping the mouse button pressed, move the mouse and observe its effects on the window. As the mouse moves, an orange frame is sized in and out, representing the size the window will be when the left mouse button is released. Now release the selection button and observe the effect. The window is now resized. Most windows have a minimum size beyond which they simply refuse to be shrunk, and some are very stubborn and refuse to be shrunk at all. Next, consider the right and bottom sides of the window. Here, the two scroll bars can be seen. Scroll bars are gadgets which let the user know if all icons represented by the window are actually being shown within the window's borders. It is possible for a window to have many icons within it, but to show only one or two. If an icon is hidden, it can't be chosen from Workbench. Therefore, it is important to know when an icon is present but not in view. Scroll bars appear entirely white when all icons are in view, but change color automatically when one or more icons are hidden. Resize the window as shown here and observe the effects on the scroll bars. As icons near the bottom of the screen become hidden, the bottom part of the scroll bar changes color. Next, let us examine a gadget which has no corresponding symbol on the window. This is known as the drag bar. The drag bar allows the window to be repositioned anywhere on the screen while maintaining the same window size. When multiple windows are present on the screen at one time, it becomes possible for one window to partially or completely cover portions of another window. This has the effect of hiding icons from view and preventing them from being selected. Repositioning a window using the drag bar is one method of uncovering an icon. The drag bar is located on the top of the window and consists of all parts of the top bar, not including the gadgets. To drag a window, place the cursor over the top bar as shown and press the left mouse button. While keeping the button pressed, move the mouse and observe the effects on the window. An empty window frame moves as the mouse moves and will become the new position of the window once the selection button is released. Next, let's look at the layering gadget. This is the gadget located in the upper right-hand corner of the window here. Like the drag bar, this gadget can be used to uncover icons hidden from view by another window. Let me re-emphasize that an icon must appear on the screen before it can be selected and the corresponding function performed. To demonstrate the layering gadget, it is first necessary to open a second window. As an example, let's use a drawer window. Drawers are simply groups of related files or programs which are used to help organize a large group of files. They are represented by the drawer symbol as shown here and are opened in the same manner as that of a disk icon. Place the mouse cursor over the drawer named Utilities and press the selection button twice in rapid succession. A window representing the contents of the utility drawer should appear on the screen as shown. Now move the newly opened window by once again placing the cursor over the drag bar, depressing the left mouse button, and moving the empty window frame until it covers one of the icons from the Workbench window, such as the trash can icon, for example. Now release the left mouse button and note the trash can icon is hidden from view. It would now be impossible to select the trash can option without first uncovering its icon. Let us use the layering gadget for this purpose. There are two boxes in the upper right-hand corner of the window. The white window is meant to represent the window you are working on. Thus, one box represents the window being hidden by another, while the other box shows one window in front of another. To uncover the trash can icon, place the mouse cursor over the box which shows a black page covering a white page and click the left mouse button once. Observe that the newly opened Utilities window has disappeared behind the Workbench window, and the trash can icon can once again be seen and selected if necessary. Now use the layering gadget on the Workbench window in exactly the same manner to bring back the Utilities window and once again hide the Workbench window. Layering gadgets only affect the window on which they are located. When multiple windows are stacked one on top of another, there will always be two ways to uncover the window you want using layering gadgets. If the layering gadget belonging to the window you are looking for is in view, then selecting the box which shows a white page in front of a black page will bring that window out in front of all other windows, as shown. Alternatively, each window which partially covers the window you want can be set to the back of the stack of overlapping windows until only the window you want is left in front, as shown here. The box in the upper left-hand corner of the window containing a small dot in its center is the closing gadget. This is a very important tool which, as the name implies, allows the window to be closed. If the window to be closed represents a program, this will terminate the program. The closing gadget therefore represents one of two main ways to exit a program, the other being an option on a menu. This gadget can be thought of as reversing whatever event occurred when an icon was opened using the mouse. To close a window, simply position the mouse cursor over the box and press the left mouse button once. Let's close the Utilities drawer using the closing gadget. This closes the window, thus reversing the effect of opening the Utilities drawer. Once again, the closing gadget affects only the window to which it is attached. Thus, even though the Utilities drawer was open from within the Workbench window, closing the Workbench window would have no effect on the actual Utilities window. Besides windows, screens are used as a method of controlling the powerful graphics capability of the Amiga. There are 4,096 colors available on the Amiga which can be displayed in any of 4 different resolutions or clarity. Screens are necessary to separate out programs which are running simultaneously while using different resolutions or choices of colors. All windows are opened within screens and can use all or part of that screen for displaying their contents. Windows opened in one screen are separated from windows opened in another and do not interact when using gadgets to layer or manipulate windows relative to each other. Windows we have seen so far have all been opened within the Workbench screen, a standard screen containing 4 colors in any one of 4 resolutions. Like Windows, multiple screens can be opened at the same time and can be layered and resized. Since only the Workbench screen is open at this time, it is not possible to demonstrate screen resizing and layering without first opening up a graphics demonstration program. Therefore, several graphics screens will be used from the free graphics demonstration programs in order to show the proper use of the screen gadgets. Behind this screen are 2 other graphics programs using separate screens as well as the standard Workbench screen. Unlike Windows, screens can only be resized vertically. To resize the screen, place the mouse cursor on the topmost part of the screen and depress the left mouse button. While keeping the mouse button pressed, move the cursor vertically to expose the underlying screens as shown. The top portion of the screen is the drag bar, but may not always be visible. Here, another graphics program can be seen whose screen can also be resized as shown to uncover yet another graphics program. Underneath this graphics program is the Workbench screen as shown here. Look carefully at the Workbench screen. Note the presence of several small windows containing the names of the corresponding graphics programs. These windows represent those programs, and by selecting the closing gadget, the corresponding graphics program is terminated and the screen closed as shown. No screen is currently open behind the Workbench screen, and to demonstrate this, the Workbench screen can be pulled down to reveal only empty space behind it. Going back to the already open graphics demonstration programs, let's look at the layering gadget located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. This gadget works in exactly the same way as the corresponding window gadget. To push the currently visible screen behind any underlying screens, place the cursor over the box containing a black page covering a white page, and press the left mouse button as shown. Screens can be layered or resized until the desired screen becomes visible. Since icons are located within screens, an icon cannot be chosen if hidden by another screen. The layering gadget and drag bar are not always seen on the screen, but may still be accessed by pointing the mouse cursor in the general vicinity of the screen gadget. If the screen cannot be resized, it may be necessary to use a menu option to close the window. This will be covered in the Menus section of the Workbench. Also, a window may cover the layering gadget or drag bar, making it impossible to choose them. If this happens, simply resize or drag the window off the screen gadget using the window sizing and drag bar gadgets. To demonstrate, let's return to the Workbench screen and cover the layering gadget with the Workbench window by using the sizing gadget and drag bar as shown. Now, to uncover the layering gadget, it is first necessary to resize the window as shown, then drag the window off the layering gadget. Before going on to menus, it is first necessary to understand the idea of a current window. When multiple windows or tasks are running at the same time, and it is necessary to communicate with one of these tasks, the Amiga must know which task you wish to communicate with. This is accomplished using the current window. When a menu option is chosen and the option affects a window, the operation will take place on the current window. The current window can be recognized by looking at the title bar. When multiple windows are opened on the screen, only one title will be clearly visible. All other titles will appear ghosted out and are appropriately termed ghost titles. Upon reopening the Utilities drawer and viewing the window, note the clarity of the title on the Utilities window and the fuzzed out appearance of the title on the Workbench window. The Utilities window is now the current window. A window can be made the current window by selecting an icon within that window. Selecting an icon is different than opening an icon in that the left mouse button is only pressed once. When an icon is selected, it changes color to inform the user that a menu option, if chosen, will act on that file currently represented by that icon. Some menu options can affect many files, so more than one icon may need to be selected at one time. To select multiple icons, press the left Shift key and while holding it down, select all icons desired as shown. Selecting an icon within a window is one way to make that window the current window, but what if you want to make a window current without selecting an icon? Placing the mouse cursor anywhere within a window that is not already taken up by an icon and pressing the left mouse button will make that window the current window without also selecting an icon. Note how the titles of these two windows change as alternate windows are made the current window. We're now ready to turn our attention toward menus. Menus are another way to communicate with the Amiga besides using icons. They are simply lists of commands and options which can be pulled down from the top of the screen when needed. Not all programs will have menu options available, but Workbench offers a number of very useful commands which will be covered shortly. To see the general categories of commands available on Workbench, press the right mouse button and note the top of the bar of the Workbench screen. To see inside these categories, move the mouse cursor up until it brushes against one of the categories as shown. The list of choices for that category will now drop into view where an appropriate choice can be made. As mentioned earlier, menu options operate on the selected icon. Therefore, options affecting disks will not be applicable to file icons, etc., and Workbench lets you know this by ghosting out those menu options which cannot be used on the currently selected icon. To select a menu option, run the mouse cursor over the list of possible choices. Each choice which can be selected will become highlighted as the cursor passes over it. If no choices are desired in that category, then move the mouse cursor outside the selection box and release the right mouse button. Alternatively, the mouse cursor can be moved over another category header and that list of options viewed. In this way, all options available can be quickly scanned as shown here. Menu options reflect those choices available on the current window, and each window may have associated with it a completely independent set of menu options. This brings out the importance of knowing how to make a desired window the current window. To demonstrate the use of a menu option, select the Workbench disk icon. Any menu option now chosen will affect the Workbench disk. We will now make a backup copy of Workbench. To do this, you will need a blank disk or one which contains useless data. Once the disk copy menu option is selected, Workbench will guide you through any necessary disk swapping, so it does not matter whether 1 or 2 disk drives is available. Now press the Menu button or Right button on the mouse and bring down the first category of menu options as shown here. While holding the Menu button down, place the cursor over the Duplicate option and release the right mouse button. Now follow the instructions for duplicating the Workbench disk. The duplication function works on files and drawers as well as disks. Any icon which is duplicated using this option will be renamed with the prefix copy of attached. To keep the original name of the file or disk, it would be necessary to first duplicate its icon, then rename it using the Rename menu option. If the Workbench disk has been properly duplicated, you should now be able to use it in place of the original disk, thus avoiding accidentally destroying the original disk. Remove the original disk and insert the copy of Workbench. Now press the Control key along with the 2 Amiga keys on either side of the space bar simultaneously. This has the effect of restarting the computer, except that Kickstart is not required in this case. Once again, choose the Workbench disk icon to reopen the Workbench window. When the Duplicate menu option is used on files and drawers, the duplicate file or drawer is placed in the same general area as the original. This means that if a file was originally in a drawer, the duplicate file would also be created in that drawer. Furthermore, if a drawer is duplicated, all contents of that drawer will be duplicated and stored in a similar drawer with the name copy of added to the front and placed at the same level as the original drawer on the disk. To move duplicated files and drawers out of their original area, the copy function must be used. This function will be discussed at the end of the discussion on menus. We're now ready to continue exploring the rest of the menu options. Again, open the first category of menu options and observe the contents. Within this category are 2 related commands with which you have already had some experience. These are the Open and Close commands. The Open option can be used as an alternative to double-clicking an icon to open it. To use, simply select an icon and then the Open menu option. Perform an opening sequence on the Utilities drawer and note the similarity to double-clicking the Utilities drawer with the left mouse button. Using this menu option has no advantage over the more convenient method of opening an icon, so it's not a very useful command. The Close option replaces clicking the closing gadget in the upper left-hand corner of a window and is likewise less convenient and not very useful. To use this option, though, you must be sure the original icon used to open the process is selected, not the window of the process itself. To demonstrate, close the Utilities drawer as shown. The next menu item to be discussed is the Rename menu option. This option is used to rename files, drawers, or the disk name itself. It takes the place of several commands in the CLI mode and is very useful. To use the Rename menu option, follow the general guidelines for the use of menu options. First, select the icon representing the file, disk, or drawer to be renamed. Then select the menu option Rename. As an example, let's temporarily rename the Utilities drawer. Note the requester which appears in the center of the screen. This is a common requester type and requires you to place the mouse cursor in the center of the text box and press the selection button before entering in the text information. Now rename the drawer to any name you desire and press the return key. The icon has now been renamed. We should now restore the drawer to its original name before continuing on. The next menu option to be discussed is the Info option, also located in the Workbench category of menu options. This command allows the display of general information about a file, disk, or drawer, and also allows some aspects of that object to be changed. The Amiga allows all files to be protected from accidental deletion by specifying a delete option for each file. If the file is deletable, then a generally destructive command may be used to accidentally delete the file. If the delete option is canceled, however, the file may only be deleted by first reinstating the delete option. The delete option is set using the Info menu option. To get information about an icon, again select the icon and choose the Info option as demonstrated here on the clock icon. Here you can see the clock file is deletable and also the size of the clock program. Experiment around on your own on various files, drawers, and disks to get a feeling for what information this menu option displays. The last menu option in the Workbench category of options is the Discard command. This allows the immediate destruction of unwanted files and bypasses the trash can model to be discussed shortly. To use, select the file to be destroyed and choose the Discard menu option. A requester will appear warning you about the finality of this action to be undertaken and allowing you to get out of the command. Files as well as entire drawers may be discarded in this manner. Next, let's move over to the Disk category of menu options. Here can be found two options, the Initialize and Empty Trash menu options. When a new disk is purchased, a small amount of information must first be written at the beginning of the disk before files can be stored on it. This process is called initialization or formatting and is taken care of automatically with disk copying, or you can use the Initialize menu option. We have already covered disk copying using the Duplicate menu option. To initialize the disk, first place the new disk in the external drive or internal if only one drive is present. The bad 0 disk icon will then be displayed as shown here. Now select this disk icon and then the menu option Initialize in the usual manner. All necessary disk swapping is requested automatically by the computer. The last menu option in this category is the Empty Trash option. Shown here is the trash can icon in the Workbench window. The trash can is actually just a drawer in which files or other drawers may be temporarily stored. The only differences between this and other drawers is this drawer cannot be deleted, and selecting the Empty Trash menu option deletes all contents of the trash can drawer. This allows recovery of files which are later felt to be useful even though the original intent was to destroy them. Files and drawers stored in this trash can are not harmed and can be recovered at any time. This means that no disk space is recovered either, however, so if more disk space is needed, the Empty Trash menu option must first be used and the files destroyed. To use the Empty Trash command, the trash can icon must first be selected and then the menu option chosen. At all other times, this menu option will appear ghosted out and cannot be chosen. Emptying the trash when the trash can is empty has no effect, as you can see here. To view the contents of the trash can, simply open it as you would any other drawer, and a window will appear displaying its contents. In the example shown here, the trash can is empty, so the window is also empty. Before moving on to the third category of menu options, let's first cover the Copy command. This command doesn't require the use of a menu option or selection of an icon, but is instead built into the mouse button itself. To copy a file or drawer from one place to another, both the original file and the destination must be in view on the display. The destination can be either an open window or an icon representing the destination. Thus, if a file or drawer were to be copied to a disk, the disk icon or open disk window must be in sight. An open drawer or drawer icon may also serve to represent a destination. To copy an icon, first place the cursor over the icon and press the selection button and keep it pressed. While holding it down, move the cursor to the desired destination. Note the new shape of the mouse cursor while the left mouse button is pressed. Wherever the cursor is when the left mouse button is released, that will be the destination of the file copy. If the cursor is in the same area as the original file or drawer, the icon itself is moved within the window as shown. In this way, the icons may be rearranged within the window any way you wish. Unlike the copy command in CLI mode, this copy command erases the file from the original destination, in effect moving the file instead of just making a copy of it. The copy command can be used to move files and drawers into the trash can for eventual destruction. The third category of menu options deals mostly with how icons and windows are displayed on the screen once an icon is opened. Within the file used to display the icon is necessary information on where the file should be opened and how big that window should be. Also, the position of each icon within that window is stored in this file. All of this information can be temporarily or permanently altered by you, the user, making it easy to rearrange icons or windows when files are inserted or deleted. These options are changed using the menu commands in the menu category named Special. Open this category for viewing as shown and note the menu options available. The Cleanup option rearranges icons in a drawer or disk window. To use, simply select the icon representing a currently open window or disk or drawer. Then select Cleanup. To demonstrate, open the Utilities drawer and rearrange the icons using the Copy command as shown. Now select the Utilities drawer and the Cleanup menu option and note the effects on icons within the Utilities window. Every mother would love to have a cleanup menu option, and it comes free with the Amiga. The positions of these icons are only temporary and will be maintained in the former position when the Amiga is rebooted or turned off and back on. To permanently save the positions of these icons, the Snapshot menu option must be chosen. Using the Snapshot menu option is different than other menu commands. Only the positions of currently selected icons are saved to disk, while the positions of unselected icons will remain unchanged. Remember, to select more than one icon, press the Shift key and select each icon whose position is to be saved to disk. Once all icons to be saved are selected, choose the Snapshot menu option as usual. The window size and position can also be saved to disk using the Snapshot menu option. Any window can be repositioned and resized as shown, then the icon selected which was used to open that window. Now the Snapshot command will save the new position of the window to disk and will be present even if the current work session is ended. The last error and redraw menu options are seldom used and won't be discussed here. You may refer to your manual for operation of commands and special programs not covered in this tutorial. That concludes the menu options available on Workbench. Now let's cover some of the special programs available on the Workbench disk, the most important of which is the Preferences program. The Amiga stores several important computer options in its memory, allowing these options to be known by the computer whenever necessary and not bothering the user. Examples of these options include which printer is currently hooked up and what colors Workbench is using as its 4 available colors. Other options stored by the Amiga include what character style to display on the screen and how fast the cursor should move relative to the mouse, as well as many options controlling how the printer is to display text and graphics. These and other options can be changed easily using the program Preferences from either the Workbench or CLI mode. The Preferences icon is seen here at the topmost level of the Workbench disk. To use, just open the icon by double-clicking the left mouse button while the cursor is over the icon. This screen should now appear and represents the topmost screen in Preferences. Two important options on this screen are the text and CLI switches located here in the left column of the screen. Text can be displayed in either 60-column or 80-column format. 60-column format may be necessary if a TV or other low-resolution monitor is being used, since it may be difficult to make out the small characters in the 80-column format. To change the format of text, just click once on the selection button while the mouse cursor is over the format desired. No immediate changes can be seen, but once Preferences is left, the new options will take effect. The next important option is the CLI on or off switch seen here. When Workbench is first received, the CLI option is disabled. There is then no easy way to access the CLI mode. In order to access CLI, you must turn the CLI to on as shown here. This option places the CLI icon in the system drawer on the Workbench disk. Then, by opening the system drawer and opening the CLI icon, CLI mode will be enabled. Very briefly, other options in the first screen will be scanned to demonstrate their function, but most of these are of little importance. Reset resets all options available on Preferences to the option selected when Workbench was first received. Last Save does just what it says by changing all options back to those selected previously when the Preferences was saved to disk. Preferences gives you the option of saving the options you selected permanently to disk or allowing the options to be used only during the current work session. This becomes useful when, for example, a different printer is hooked up temporarily. To save a Preferences file to disk, select the Save option shown here once the desired options have been selected. This will overwrite the previous saved file on that disk. To use the current settings for this work session only, select the Use option shown here. If you wish to exit Preferences without affecting either the current or saved options, select Cancel from this screen. Cancel, Save, and Use will all end the Preferences program and put you back to wherever you were before Preferences was opened. You may change the colors selected by Workbench by varying the amounts of red, green, and blue after selecting one of the four colors as shown. To reset the four colors back to their original values, select the Reset option above the color bars. The Workbench and CLI screens may be off-center with factory settings, so any centering adjustments necessary can be made through the centering gadget shown here. The date and time may be changed by selecting the number of the date or time which is to be changed, then clicking on the appropriate arrow until the correct date and time are shown. The speed of the cursor relative to mouse speed can be changed to any of three choices available as shown here. And the time necessary to recognize a double click of the left mouse button as opposed to 2 single clicks can also be adjusted as desired by this gadget. Next are two choices which bring up separate screens which offer further settings on the printer and changing the cursor shape. First, select the Change Printer option. The screen which appears should look like this, showing more printer choices and options available from Preferences. Unlike most other computer systems, the Amiga supports printers at the level of the disk operating system. This means all software which require the use of a printer will automatically support the printers listed in Preferences. For graphics printers, even some advanced graphic options are available, which any software package may easily use. To see if your printer is supported, click the up or down arrow in the upper right-hand corner until the printer you want is highlighted in orange. Many printers use commands which are for the most part identical to those of a popular printer, thus allowing the selection of the popular printer in Preferences. By far, the most common of these formats is the Epson-compatible format used by many printers. Consult the manual of your printer if it is not supported here to be sure it is not compatible with one of these printers. As a last resort, the custom printer option allows the use of any printer for regular text output, providing the owner's manual is nearby and the correct commands can be entered when Preferences asks for them. Briefly, let's cover the remaining printer options available on this screen. Most printers attach to the parallel port of the Amiga, but some do attach to the serial port. Here you may select either parallel or serial depending on which printer you have by using this gadget in the upper left-hand corner. 4 paper sizes are supported automatically, along with a custom option allowing any size paper to be used. If the custom option is used, the length gadget must be selected and the number of lines entered in followed by hitting the return key as shown here. Select fanfold paper type if paper is continuous, and single if each sheet must be separately fed into the printer. Quality selection refers to the near letter quality mode supported by many printers. As with all functions chosen here, if the printer chosen does not support that function, it will be ignored by Preferences. Left and right margins may be pre-selected using Preferences by using the margin gadget. To select a margin, enter the number of characters to be indented for the left margin or the number of characters from the left of the page to the right margin if setting the right margin. Pitch selections change the size of the characters being printed. The higher the pitch, the smaller the print. 10 pitch is used to mean pica, 12 to mean elite, and 15 to mean fine print. Again, the printer you use may not support these pitches, so Preferences may ignore the settings. The spacing option allows either 6 or 8 lines per inch, which may improve text readability. For supported printers with graphics capability, several very powerful graphics options are available through Preferences. To view these options, select the Graphics Select gadget on the right side of the screen as shown. Threshold is used for black and white graphics and controls which colors are printed as black and which as white. With a lower threshold, only darker colors are printed black. Using 2 as a threshold, the darkest color will be printed black while all others will be printed white. To change the threshold, drag the slider while keeping the left mouse button depressed and release the left mouse button when the slider is over the desired threshold. Aspect is a very useful function and affects all printing in graphics mode and determines whether the picture is printed sideways or vertically. If printed sideways, a picture will more accurately represent the dimensions of the screen, since the horizontal resolution of the screen is greater than the vertical, but the paper is longer vertically than horizontally. The shade selection is another very powerful feature and can be used to perform striking black and white graphics effects from color prints. If grayscale is selected, color pictures will be printed using different shades of gray. Also, this selection allows some dot matrix black and white printers to simulate 4 colors by varying the impact of the print heads on the paper. The positive and negative images allow the complete reversal of black and white graphics, where all black areas will be printed white and vice versa when the negative option is used. When the desired options have been selected, press either OK or Cancel depending on whether you want to change the previous graphics selections. Choosing OK or Cancel only affects this screen of selections, as the previous screen now reappears as shown here. Again, if these options are all correct, then press OK. Otherwise, press Cancel to leave them unchanged from their previous state. Now, the original screen is presented, and you may select Save, Use, or Cancel as discussed earlier. Before leaving Preferences, we should complete the review of available options by covering the Edit Pointer function. To change the pointer from an arrow to your own custom pointer, select the Edit Pointer gadget near the bottom of the screen as shown. The screen shown here will emerge, allowing a new pointer to be made via a miniature paint program. The magnified image of the pointer is what you actually change. To clear the image, select Clear. To then restore the image, press Restore as shown. Let's start by clearing the image. The 4 color boxes on the right show how the cursor will look against each of the background colors of Workbench. The point you now see on the magnified image of the cursor is where all references to the cursor are actually made. This hotspot may be moved anywhere by selecting the Set Point option and clicking the left mouse button once when the cursor is over the desired location. The drawing color is selected from one of the 4 drawing colors shown here, and any one of these colors can be changed to a non-workbench color by altering the red, green, or blue components as demonstrated. When drawing with background color, the effect will be to make those areas transparent against the workbench background. Finally, drawing is accomplished using the selection button. Now you may either cancel the edit function or retain it using OK. This concludes the use of preferences. Other programs on the Workbench disk are mainly for demonstration purposes and will not be covered here. The Notepad and Calculator programs in the Utilities drawer are of some use, and instructions can be found in the owner's manual if desired. The Icon Ed program in the System drawer is a specialized program used to make a custom icon, and again, instructions for its use may be found in the Amiga Owner's Manual. Finally, the large icons labeled Initialize and Disk Copy found in the System drawer are simple instructions on how to perform these functions using menu options. As I mentioned earlier, CLI is the more traditional way to access the features of a computer, but it's also the most powerful. All functions that can be performed on Workbench can also be performed on CLI, as well as many functions which can only be accessed through CLI. Among the more important features available through CLI is the ability to use the computer's memory as a second disk drive. This can allow access to a second disk drive for OneDrive users, as well as greatly enhancing the speed of disk access as represented by this picture. The CLI mode works extensively with files. As a matter of fact, all the icons we've seen so far are simply pictures stored in files and generally used to represent files. Exceptions to this are the disk and drawer icons, which do not represent files. All files have names, and many times you, the user, will be responsible for naming a file. The file can have at most 30 characters, and all these characters can be printable characters with the exception of the colon and the slash, for reasons that will soon become apparent. Shown here are several examples of file names with appropriate extensions which tell you something about what the file contains. Some file names give a hint as to what the file contains and are treated different by the Amiga and most experienced users. An example of this is the period info file. All files shown as icons on Workbench have a corresponding period info file. If a file in a directory has no period info file, it will not be shown and thus cannot be run from Workbench. Period info files are the name of the original files with a period info attached and contain information necessary to draw the icon. These also contain the name of any program which may be necessary to use this file, and thus when chosen from Workbench they may automatically load that program. Other file names are used by more experienced users to help tell at a glance what kind of information the file contains. Examples shown here are period PIC, meaning a picture file, or period BAS, meaning a program written in BASIC. Period C means a program written in C, etc. Files are stored in directories, which are simply files holding the names of several other files. The drawers we have seen in Workbench are just directories. As with Workbench, directories may contain other directories and so on, with no limit to this nesting. Often directories are thought of as trees, as shown here, with the topmost directory being the root of the tree, and each directory underneath it being a branch. Actual files in this analogy would be leaves. Directories are used for several reasons. First, they help organize files on a disk when the number of files on a disk is so large they become hard to find. Imagine a tree containing 1,000 leaves, each with an X painted on it as shown here, and one leaf with an O. To glance at the tree, it may be difficult to find the leaf with the O, but what if it were known which branches you need to follow in order to find the leaf? It may then only take 5 changes of branches to find the leaf. This is how directories help, since each subdirectory can be followed until the subdirectory containing your file is found. Directories on the Amiga can also be used to store categories of files used by the computer system. So this directory can be searched if a file is needed regardless of which directory or drive you're in. Shown here is a general layout of how files needed by the computer may be stored. Let's begin by entering CLI from Workbench. To enter CLI, open the System drawer on Workbench and double-click the CLI icon as shown. If the CLI icon is not in the System drawer, the CLI in Preferences is probably turned off. In that case, you must re-enter Preferences and click the CLI to On and save Preferences to disk using the Save gadget. When CLI is entered, a window should appear in the middle of the screen as shown. The 1 with the greater than sign is the prompt. Each command in CLI is entered in text format after the CLI prompt. To enter a command, the command is typed out along with any other file names or options the command uses, and the return key pressed. The return key signals the end of the command, and no action will take place until it is pressed. Before going on to the directory command, it is first necessary to develop the concept of a current directory and a path name. The concept of a current directory is one which is very important to CLI. When using commands which work on files, the commands will always assume the file is in the current directory. This is just a memory location in the computer which stores a single directory which you can change. When the system is first booted, the current directory is set to the root directory of the disk present in the internal disk drive of the Amiga. The root directory is the topmost directory and is automatically placed on a blank disk for you when the disk is formatted. The concept of a current directory will become more familiar to you once we begin experimenting around with CLI commands. Before continuing on, it is important to develop the idea of a path name as well. We have already seen how files can be represented in directory tree formats, but how can these files be separated from one another and accessed? When a file is embedded in a directory, its name is actually changed to incorporate the directory to which it belongs. This directory is called its parent directory. The file name now becomes the directory name followed by a slash followed by the file name. When multiple subdirectories are nested within one another, as we've seen with the preceding pictures, they can be accessed by using the path name, which involves listing all directories and their subdirectories separated by slashes until you have reached the subdirectory or file which you desire. The use of path names also will become more clear as we begin experimenting with various commands. Very often it is necessary to know what files are in a certain directory or present on a certain device. A list of these files can be obtained by using the directory command. The command is issued by typing dir alone or in combination with a specific directory or device name for which a directory listing is needed. If a dir is typed by itself, the files on the current directory will be displayed on the screen. Since when you first boot up you are put in the root directory on the drive 0 disk, try typing dir now as shown. The files and directories listed are those of the root directory of the Workbench disk, since this is the current directory. Also note that the listing failed to go into each subdirectory to find out what was in these. When the directory command is used without options, it only displays the topmost level of files and directories in the current directory. If all files below the level of the current directory need to be seen, you may use the A option by typing dir and then opt and A as shown here. Using this option forces the directory command to open each directory as it comes across it and display the contents of that directory. The listing may at first seem confusing, but is actually well organized. Lower levels of directory listings will be indented so as to tell their contents apart from their parent directories. The dir opt-a command will abandon the task of displaying a certain directory if it comes upon another directory, and will instead take up the new task of displaying the contents of the newly found directory. Once finished displaying the contents of this directory, it will once again return to the previous position it left off when displaying the previous directory. So far, you only know how to display the contents of the current directory, but what if some other directory than the current directory needs to be displayed? A listing of files in any directory may be found by typing the dir command followed by the name of that directory and pressing the return key. Let's try obtaining a listing of files in the System drawer on the Workbench disk. This drawer is actually the directory labeled System. So let's type dir and System and return as shown. The contents of the directory System are now displayed. Any file which is to have a corresponding icon in Workbench will have a file with its name plus a period info as well attached. Several examples can be seen in this directory listing. Remember that the dir command only searches files and directories from the current directory on down. If the current directory were the System directory, for example, then simply typing dir would give that directory listing we just observed. However, if the current directory were the System directory, you could not get a directory listing of one of the other directories like the root or the demos directory. A way around this would be to specify the path name of the desired directory starting at the root. For example, if the listing of the files in the demos drawer or directory were desired and the current directory was the System drawer or directory, simply typing dir demos would cause the directory command to search from the root directory, symbolized by the colon, to the demos directory. This method of specifying the exact path name of a directory from the level of the root will work no matter what the current directory is. For practice, experiment on your own now with obtaining first the list of files on the root directory, then on each of the directories listed. Let's now explore the cd or change directory command. It may be appropriate now to learn how to alter which directory is the current directory. This is perhaps one of the simplest commands and involves typing the letters cd followed by a space and the directory to be made the current directory. As with the dir command and most commands, the new directory to be made the current directory has to be found directly beneath what is now the current directory. Again, a way around this is to specify the exact pathway from the root directory on down of the directory to be made the current directory. Let's try an example now. Try changing the current directory to the System directory. Remember that the current directory is the root directory of the Workbench disk when the system is started, so the System directory satisfies the requirement of being directly below the current directory. Therefore, the path name of the System directory need not be entered. To change the current directory, type cd and System as shown. Another component of the cd command allows the current directory name to be displayed in case there is some doubt as to what the current directory is. To do this, simply type cd without any directory name following it as shown. If the previous cd command was successful, the name System should be displayed as shown, indicating a successful change of the current directory. Now obtain a directory listing of the System directory. It is now only necessary to type dir, since the current directory is the System directory. What if now the files in the Demos directory needed to be displayed? As mentioned earlier, you could either change the current directory to the Demos drawer by typing cd and demos and then just using the directory command, or you can use the path name directly by specifying dir demos as shown here. When specifying path names, it is not always necessary to begin at the root by starting with a colon. If the colon or a device name such as df0 colon or df1 colon were not used at the front of the path name, then the path will actually start at the level of the current directory. In other words, if several directories separated by slashes are used in a command, AmigaOS will assume the first directory listed is one of the directories that is directly in the current directory, and that all subsequent directories are deeper in the directory tree structure. As an example, let's change the current directory back to the root directory. Now, within the Workbench disk are a list of printers which are stored in the printers directory, which is in turn stored under the devices directory. The devices directory is abbreviated DEVS and is under the root directory as shown. Now obtain a directory listing of the printers directory. This is an example of using a path name without first specifying a colon in front of it. Type dir and then devices/printers as shown. These are the printers supported by AmigaOS as of the taping of this video. Let's now go on to the make directory command. You may be wondering how directories ever got there in the first place. Funny you should ask, as this now brings us to the make directory command. This command creates a new directory whose name you specify and places this new directory beneath the current directory. To use the command, simply type make dir followed by the name of the directory you wish to create. This can be any legal file name which corresponds to the file naming format used for files. Make sure your Workbench disk is not write protected and it is not the original Workbench disk. Now create a new directory underneath the current directory using a name of your own, as shown. A new empty directory has now been placed beneath the current or root directory. To be sure it's there, obtain a listing of the current directory as shown. Since this is an empty directory, attempting to get a list of files within it will have no effect, as seen here. If you wish to make a directory within some area other than the current directory, as usual, the path name may be specified, with the last two names being the directory you wish to create, preceded by a slash, in turn preceded by the directory under which it's to be created. Now we have learned how to create a directory, so let's see how to destroy it. To remove an empty directory, use the delete command. The delete command is used by typing delete followed by a space and a file or directory name to be deleted as shown. Now get a directory listing and observe the new directory has been deleted. The delete command by itself will delete files, but it will not delete directories unless they are absolutely empty. In the previous example, our newly created directory was empty, so AmigaOS didn't complain. Try to delete the devices directory and note the response. An option is available for the delete command, which does allow it to delete all files within a directory that is not empty. This is the All option. To enable this option, allow a space after the directory to be deleted and enter ALL before pressing the return key as shown. Since this was actually not a directory, an error message to this effect is printed instead. As with all commands, the delete command looks only at files and directories it finds in the current directory. If the file or directory to be deleted exists in a directory which is in a higher or lower level than the current directory, then the path name must be included or the current directory changed to that of the parent directory of the target file. Now that we know how to create and destroy directories and files, let's go on to how to rename a file or directory once it's been created. This may be useful when making a backup of a file or a directory for protection, so the previous copy may be renamed with the standard .BAK attached to the end of the file name. This is accomplished using the rename command. To use this command, type rename followed by a space and the file to be renamed. Then follow the file name with a space and the desired file name or new directory name. To demonstrate, rename the devices directory temporarily as shown. Obtain a directory listing now of the current directory, or the root directory. Note the devices directory has been renamed. It is very important we now return the name of the directory to its original name, or AmigaOS will be unable to find the printers and other devices it needs to function. If the command did not work, check to be sure your copy of Workbench is not write protected. For any command which alters the name or status of a disk file or directory, the disk cannot be write protected for the command to work. The next command we should explore is the copy command. This command allows a copy of a file or even a directory to be placed anywhere within the directory tree file structure. To use, simply type copy and a space, followed by the name of the file or directory to be copied, followed by the destination file name or directory name. The effect of the copy name varies depending on whether the object to be copied is a file or a directory, and whether the destination is to be a directory or a file name. If the object to be copied is a directory, then all files in the top level of that directory will be copied to the destination directory. If subdirectories of the copied directory also need to be copied to the destination, then using the All option will copy these as well. To use this option, type ALL after the destination name. If the object to be copied is a file and the destination is a file, then the file will be renamed to the new file name. If the destination file name includes a path name, then the file will be placed in the directory designated in the path name. If the source is a file and the destination is a directory, the file will be copied to the directory using the same file name. Let's start by copying one of the demos from the demo drawer to various directories. Begin by copying the dots file from the demos drawer to the system drawer. Notice the source is a file name, which must include the path name since this file is not located in the root or current directory. The destination is a directory, so the original file name will remain intact. Obtain a directory listing of the system directory now. Now do the same thing, only renaming the file to new dots while copying. Since both the source and the destination targets were file names, the file was renamed. Since the destination also includes a path name, the new file was placed in the appropriate directory system. Now obtain a directory listing again to be sure the file was copied. We should now erase these files so as not to disturb the file structure of the Workbench disk. In this example of the delete command, you may observe that up to 10 files or directories can be deleted by simply following each name to be deleted with a space and another file to be deleted. If 2 drives are in use, files and directories may be copied from one drive to another by specifying the drive name in front of the path name. The drive inside the Amiga is called df0:. The external drive is df1:. For instance, to copy all files in the system drawer to drive df1:, you could type copy system to df1:. If it were desired to keep all of these files under a directory of the same name, it would first be necessary to create a directory in drive df1:, with the name system. The copy command will not make directories for you unless the all option is used. When this option is used, new subdirectories are created using the same names as the old subdirectories during the copying process. Next, let's cover a command which allows the display of text files on the screen. Text files contain only characters of text in a standard format which allows access by word processors and printer drivers, etc. If the contents of a text file were unknown, then they could be displayed on the screen by typing type followed by a space and the name of the file to be displayed. As usual, this file must be in the current directory or the path name must be used. If the file displayed is not a text file, numerous strange characters and other odd happenings will occur as the computer tries to display non-text information as if it were text. This is harmless, but occasionally the display may end up trapped in the alternate character set. If strange characters appear after this command has failed, press the escape along with the C key, which will clear the screen and put you back in regular characters. The next command we will cover is the format command. This is identical in effect to the initialize command used in the Workbench. To use the format command, you must have a blank disk to be formatted. If only one drive is used, a special method is necessary in order to use the format command. For OneDrive users, type format, a space, and a question mark as shown. What you see now is a listing of how to use this command with its keywords. This method of displaying the keywords necessary to use a command can be helpful, but its use is beyond the scope of this video instruction. What is important in this case is that a pause is forced, which allows the replacement of the Workbench disk in drive 0 with your blank disk. If the entire command were typed out at once, AmigaOS would attempt to immediately format the disk in drive df0, which would then be the Workbench disk. To finish the command, type drive df0: name followed by any legal file name as shown. For now, don't include spaces in your file or directory names, as files with spaces require special handling in AmigaOS. The name you give to a disk is called the volume name and can be used in place of the df0: and df1: when trying to access the disk. For two drive users, the format command can be entered entirely in one line by using format, drive, df1: name, and your own volume name. The blank disk is then placed in the external drive and the Workbench disk kept in the internal disk drive. The next command we will cover allows the complete duplication of one disk to another disk and has the same effect and name as the disk copy command in Workbench. To use the disk copy command, once again you must have a blank disk or one with useless data available to be the destination disk. The command is entered by typing disk copy from df0: to and then followed by either df0: or df1: depending on whether you are a one drive or two drive user respectively. You may also end the command by an optional keyword name followed by a different volume name if a different volume name is to be added. To use this, end the command with NAME followed by the new volume name as follows. Lastly, let's learn how to use the internal memory of the computer as a separate disk drive. Before learning this, however, it is first necessary to learn the concept of a device and the command assign. Devices can be either real devices, such as printers, disk drives, modems, or the internal memory of the computer, or logical devices, which are areas on a disk which can be treated as if they were separate external devices. The Amiga remembers which areas on the disk were assigned to these logical devices and allows the user to reassign these areas. An example of this is the C: device. All devices have a name followed by a colon. The C: device simply stores the name of a directory where the Amiga-DOS commands may be found. Remember, all commands are simply files stored on the disk. For convenience, these files are all grouped in the C directory on the Workbench disk. When a command is typed at the keyboard, the current directory is first searched to see if an executable file with that name is present on the directory. Not finding the file there, Amiga-DOS then looks to whatever directory name is stored in the C: device and searches that directory for the commands. If this directory is changed to the RAM disk, for example, then the Workbench disk no longer need be present in a disk drive unless some necessary data on the disk needs to be used. This frees up OneDrive users to use the disk drive for copying, maintaining another program disk, etc. To reassign any device to a directory other than its original directory, use the assign command. Typing assign without any device name will show a list of all devices whose directories can be reassigned, along with their current directory assignment, as shown. To reassign a device, type assign followed by a space and the device to be reassigned, followed by the directory to be used as that device. Let's now use the RAM disk to store all commands presently in the C directory on the Workbench disk. Then we can reassign the C: device to an equivalent directory in the RAM disk. This will then free up the OneDrive users to use their disk drive for some other purpose. First, create a new directory in the RAM disk by using the make directory command. The RAM disk is accessed just as a disk drive, and its size is always made just large enough to hold all the data present on it. Thus, the RAM disk is always 100% full. To create a directory on the RAM disk, type make directory, RAM:, and then whatever directory name you desire. In this case, we should probably stick with the traditional C as shown. Now copy all commands from the C directory to the new directory in RAM by typing copy C, the directory which stores the commands, RAM:C, as demonstrated here. Now reassign the C: device to the new directory in RAM and your disk is free to use for other purposes. To do this, type assign followed by a space and the device name C:, followed by the new directory to search as seen here. To demonstrate how silent your new disk drive can be, let's first change the current directory to the RAM disk using the cd command as shown. Now get a very silent listing of the files in the newly created command directory on the RAM disk using the directory command as shown here. Well, by now you should be familiar with Workbench and at least have enough knowledge to begin experimenting with CLI. Through Workbench you can gain access to most of the basic features needed to run pre-developed software, but CLI offers many more features which we have not discussed here. To learn more about CLI, it's probably best to purchase a manual and begin experimenting on your own. Well, we hope we've enabled you to learn some of the basic features of the Amiga more quickly and sparked your interest to learn even more about the many features of this very powerful machine. Thank you.